What happens when a lone puma steps into tiger territory and finds a wounded cub? She didn't expect to fight a full-grown anaconda or face what came next. What happened after left the entire jungle in stunned silence. Let me tell you something. I'm not the type to go poking around in somebody else's backyard, especially if that backyard belongs to a tiger. But that morning was different. I wasn't hunting. I wasn't running. I wasn't even mad. I was just remembering. They say you don't go back to old places unless you're either brave or stupid. That day, I guess I was both. The air was thick, swampy, smelled like something between moldy fruit and disappointment. This wasn't my terrain. I belonged to cliffs and dry wind, not this wet, snaky mess. But there I was, a grown puma walking into the tiger's kingdom like I owned a lease. I didn't come looking for trouble. I came for closure. This jungle, this twisted, dripping maze of vines and rot. It's where I once almost died as a cub. Fire drove my mother and me into it. I remember how the trees glowed orange, how the ground was so hot it cracked. I remember thinking, well, that's it. No more meat, no more sunlight, no more breathing. But something strange happened. The tiger didn't kill us. He just stood there, amber eyes burning holes into my spine, and let us pass. No growl, no chase, just silence, the kind that crawls under your skin. Now, years later, I came back, maybe to understand, maybe to honor that silence, or maybe because grief makes you do weird things. And wouldn't you know it, life had other plans. I heard it before I saw it. A thin, desperate sound, like someone had stepped on a flute made of ribs. At first I thought it was a bird, then I thought no. It was too sad for a bird. It was smaller, hurt, alone. And sure enough, tucked between the roots of a collapsed tree, under leaves so thick you'd think they were hiding treasure, was a tiger cub. Alone, shaking, looking like life had already kicked him down and stole his lunch. I'm not gonna lie. Part of me wanted to walk away. You don't get involved in tiger business. You especially don't touch their kids. But he wasn't just sitting there. He was crying. Little gasps, weak limbs, one eye shut. I've seen carcasses in better shape. So what did I do? I walked closer. I didn't growl, didn't sniff. I just stood there, staring at him like some auntie who showed up uninvited to Thanksgiving. He didn't flinch. He just looked at me like, well, either help or move along. But I felt it before I saw it. You know that sick feeling in your stomach when you realize something's behind you? That's something long and heavy and patient. The leaves to my left moved and I saw it. An anaconda. Not one of those cute little, oops, I lost my pet snake things. Number. This one looked like it had lived through 5 wars, and she was hungry. She wasn't fast, but she didn't have to be. Her body was already half-coiled, her tongue flicking like she could already taste baby tiger on the menu. Instinct kicked in. I stepped between the cub and that overgrown rope like it was the most natural thing in the world. Dumb? Probably. But here's the thing. If I'd walked away, I wouldn't have been able to sleep. And I like sleeping. The anaconda rose up slow, real slow, like she was showing off. I growled. She hissed. It was a standoff neither of us had time for. I lunged first. Big mistake. She snapped sideways and coiled around my back leg like a jealous lover. I went down hard. There was a pop in my hip I won't forget for the rest of my 9 lives. Pain shot up my spine, but I didn't scream. Pride wouldn't let me. The cub squealed behind me. I could hear him shuffling, trying to get closer. Don't, I muttered. Yeah, like he could understand me. I twisted, bit down on her skin, tasted that cold, wet snake blood. She hissed louder, tighter, and then went for my throat. I ducked, rolled, clawed like my life depended on it, because, spoiler, it did. One lucky swipe caught her right in the eye. Then another. She screamed. I didn't even know snakes could scream. And her grip loosened. I pushed, bit, scratched. When I finally stood up, breathing like I'd run through fire, she was done, unmoving, heavy, useless. I turned to the cub. He was still there, still breathing, and then slowly he waddled to my side and pressed his little head against my ribs. I sat down. He curled up beside me like I was his mama. I didn't know what to think, but then I felt it. That look, that pressure, that cold breath on the back of your neck when someone is watching. Not human, not snake, something else, to be continued. What happened next changed everything. You do not want to miss how this turns. Now, let me explain something real clear. There's silence in the jungle, and then there's that kind of silence. The kind that doesn't just fall, it sits on you. Heavy, watchful. Makes your fur prickle and your lungs tighten like someone tied a rope around your ribs. I was still sitting next to the cub, who, by the way, had officially decided I was his new everything. Pillow, protector, portable heater. He was tucked under my shoulder like we'd been through 100 winters together. But I wasn't thinking about him anymore, because I wasn't alone. The jungle had eyes again, and not the curious kind. No, these eyes burned, judged, took notes. I stood up slow, real slow, like a gambler counting his last chips. And then I saw her. She moved like smoke but hit the clearing like thunder. Big, solid, stripes darker than midnight and muscles under her skin like coiled cable. The mother. Let me tell you something about tigresses. They don't do misunderstandings. They don't do second chances. And they sure as sunrise don't like finding strangers next to their cubs. She didn't growl, didn't roar. She didn't have to. One glance from her and I felt about 3 inches tall. My heart thudded against my ribs like a prisoner begging for release. My tail twitched once, a useless, nervous tick. I didn't run. Why? Because if you run from a tiger mother, you don't get far. You become a lesson, and not the kind anyone survives to teach. So, what did I do? I sat. Yeah, I know how that sounds. A full-grown puma sitting in front of a tiger like she was a school principal. But I wasn't being submissive. I was being honest. And in the jungle, honesty's rare enough that it buys you at least a second of thinking time. Her eyes flicked to the cub, and that second vanished. She charged. Fast like lightning and twice as loud. She wasn't just running, she was coming. All teeth, claws, fury, and I was the reason her baby was crying. I braced, not like I could fight her off. But if I was going down, I was going down with my ears up. But just before impact, something in her paused. A heartbeat, a breath. Her nose twitched. She smelled it. Blood. Snake blood. She looked down, saw the anaconda's limp mess of a body coiled beside us like a busted rope. Her breathing shifted, still angry, still wild, but no longer reckless. Now she was calculating, rewinding the scene in her head. You could see it in her eyes, the fight, the blood, the protection. And then the cub, pressed against me like I was his shelter. She stepped closer, sniffed the cub. He purred, like I was the only soft thing he'd felt in days. She turned to me, stared so hard it felt like Judgment Day. I swear I saw memory flicker across her face. Loss, confusion, maybe even respect. But she wasn't done yet. Suddenly she growled low and deep, then circled me once, tight, close enough that her whiskers grazed my cheek. It wasn't a threat. It was something else, something older. I'd seen this before, back when my own mother circled a dying deer. Not to kill, but to claim, to decide. And then she backed up, just like that. Didn't pounce, didn't bite. Just sat on her haunches across from me like we were 2 weary soldiers sharing the same ruined trench. I didn't breathe for a full minute. The cub climbed into her lap. She licked him once, slowly, then looked up at me again, still silent, still powerful. But something in the air had changed. And that's when I heard it. Not from her, not from the trees, but deeper in the jungle. The kind of sound that doesn't belong. The kind of sound that means someone else is here. This is the turning point. Everything's about to snap. You're one step from the moment we've all been waiting for. Stick around. The next part is the one no one forgets. You ever feel the kind of stillness that's louder than a roar? That's what we were sitting in. Me, the tigress, and her cub, three strangers tangled in something too old for words. And then it came. That sound again. But this time it wasn't just a sound. It was metal, click, creak, rust-on-rust kind of sound. Something dragged across bark and crushed dry leaves underfoot like it had no business being in this part of the world. It wasn't a predator, not one of ours anyway. It was human. Now don't get me wrong. I've seen humans before, watching from a safe hill, walking in with sticks that shoot thunder. But this one was different. He was alone. And he looked wrong. Not scared. Not angry. Focused. Like he knew what he came for. And oh, he had gear, nets, ropes, traps with teeth. This wasn't a tourist. This was a collector. The kind of man who doesn't leave empty-handed. And the way he looked at that tiger cub? Like he'd already tagged a price on its head. The tigress was the first to move. She didn't roar. No use giving him a head start. But her body tightened like a wire ready to snap. She crouched, one paw behind the other, eyes locked on the man. He didn't flinch. He lifted some shiny thing and aimed it, not at her, not at me, at the cub. That did it. She lunged. He was ready. The trap snapped out like a whip, a net with weights, straight at her chest. It hit mid-air, tangled her just enough to throw off her landing. She hit the ground hard, rolled. The cub screamed. I moved, fast. I didn't think, I just ran. Now I'm no hero. I don't run into chaos with a smile, but something ancient kicked in. That cub had chosen me. That tigress had spared me, and this man, he didn't deserve to walk out of this place. I leapt, straight for his arm. My teeth sank in. He howled, dropped the net controller. I tore and twisted, not to kill, just to make damn sure he didn't touch that cub again. He swung back, hard, with something metal, caught me across the side. My vision split, but I didn't let go. I dug in deeper. Behind me, the tigress was back on her feet, bleeding, furious, and way past negotiation. She charged again, and this time he wasn't ready. She hit him like a boulder. He flew back, slammed into a tree, dropped. Breathing? Maybe. Moving? Not a chance. We both stood there, me limping, her snarling, and the cub, still pressed against the jungle floor, eyes wide, body shaking. The tigress walked over and lay beside him, pulling him under her chest like she was reclaiming a lost part of herself. I watched. She watched me back. And you know what she did? She nodded. Yeah, a tiger nodded at me. Not thanks, not apology, just recognition. Then she turned, picked up the cub in her jaws, and disappeared into the undergrowth like smoke. I stood alone for a long time, jungle breathing around me, pain throbbing in my ribs, blood drying on my face. But I was calm, because somehow, in the middle of all that madness, we did something nobody talks about anymore. We trusted. We protected something small. And in return, we were spared. The jungle doesn't give second chances. But that day, it gave us one. That's the end of this story. But not the end of what it means. Because sometimes, the wildest things in the jungle aren't claws or fangs. They're moments of mercy.